Koukaku Kidoutai, Kidou Keisatsu Patlabor, and Urusei Yatsura. Oshii Mamoru has directed some of the most iconic works in animation history. His unique style has inspired countless directors, and his magnum opus, Koukaku Kidoutai, is generally considered one of the best cyberpunk works of all time. For this video, I would like to discuss his early OVA works, which are Dallos, Tenshi no Tamago, Twilight Q Meikyuu Butken File 538, and Kidou Keisatsu Patlabor Early Days. These OVA series represent different aspects of Oshii's style, with some overlapping characteristics. Through these OVA series, we can observe how they have shaped Oshii's style and influenced his later works. Also, we can see how his style is reflected and reproduced in other series and films. Dallos is one of the earliest works Oshii directed. Released in 1983 as an OVA series, it is the first anime series produced in an OVA format. Although it was co-directed by Oshii Mamoru and Toriumi Hisayuki, a director responsible for works such as Gatchaman and Lily Cat, it clearly represents Oshii's style. The first characteristic is the emphasis on political themes. Oshii generally includes political aspects in his works, and this tendency is well represented in Dallos. For example, the plot of the series revolves around the political conflict between Moon and Earth. Moon citizens demand equal treatment and rights, while Earth citizens scoff at their demands since they consider them second-class citizens whose job is to work endlessly for them. The conflict worsens as a radical guerrilla army terrorizes the city, and the Moon Management Bureau responds with force. Another characteristic is the religious aspect. For instance, Moon citizens worship Dallos, a robotic creature buried on the other side of the moon, as God. Moon citizens are terrified when the Moon Police pulverizes Dallos into pieces. In response, they act more aggressively, aggravating the conflict and eventually resulting in heavy casualties. However, in the final episode, Dallos is resurrected and destroys the police army. The existence of a godlike being and the theme of death and resurrection indicate that Oshii incorporates religious aspects into his work. Aside from the series itself, Dallos has a significant influence on the anime industry as a pioneer of the OVA format. Since OVA is much less restricted than TBA in terms of its contents and subject matters, anime creators can express their ideas more freely and boldly. This resulted in a surge in popularity of the OVA format in the 80s and 90s, and Oshii played a major role here as the director of the series. Tenshi no Tamago, released in 1985, is Oshii's another early OVA work. The most notable characteristic of this work is its avant-garde nature that defies conventional storytelling. Conventional anime, or any works of fiction in general, have central plots and characters that we can follow and sympathize with. In contrast, Tenshi no Tamago has no central plot or an event that can be easily understood and analyzed. We have two main characters, a girl and a man, but their roles in the story are vague at best. The ending is also cryptic, where the camera slowly zooms out to show the fractured world in which the protagonists live. By defying the conventional storytelling style, Oshii opens up the interpretation to the audience. Instead of creators explaining the story to the audience, it is up to them to understand the meaning behind the work, which I think is quite ingenious. Another characteristic is dark tone and deliberate omission of voice. Oshii uses dark colors throughout the OVA. The sky is covered with dark clouds and feels like it will rain anytime soon. Buildings and objects are deeply shaded and grayish, emphasizing a bleak and ominous atmosphere. This atmosphere is augmented by a lack of voice. Most of the time, the only sound the audience can hear is the background music. Voice acting is limited to certain scenes, and even when the characters speak, they talk only for a brief moment. Finally, similar to Dallos, Oshii utilizes a religious theme through biblical references. For example, in this scene, the male protagonist talks about Noah's Ark. In the next scene, where the female protagonist screams as she finds out that the egg has been broken, it reminds the audience of Adam and Eve's original sin. Oshii Mamoru's style in Tenshi no Tamago can be observed in other works, such as Haibane Renmei, Ergo Proxy, and Evangelion, which focus on religious themes and unconventional storytelling. Twilight Q Meikyuu Butken File 538, released in 1987, is one of Oshii's early OVA works. It is part 2 of the series Twilight Q that deals with mysterious events. This work represents Oshii's style in many ways. The first characteristic is the use of static shots. Throughout the story, the camera does not move much. It generally just focuses on one scene until the protagonist finishes talking. As the camera is mostly fixed, the audience understands what's going on through the protagonist's explanation. Also, doing so gives the sense of reading an actual case file instead of watching a series. Another characteristic is its usage of real-life images. There are many examples in Meikyuu Butken where Oshii uses filtered real-life images instead of standard animated images. In doing so, he connects fiction to reality, creating a unique atmosphere. This style can be observed in works of Gainax and Shaft, which is a clear inspiration from Oshii's style. In addition, Meikyuu Butken is dreamlike and fantastical, which is characteristic of Oshii's style. In Meikyuu Butken, the protagonist works as a detective who is dispatched to observe a strange family. However, his sense of reality becomes unclear as a young girl from the family seems to have supernatural powers. As his surveillance continues, he becomes part of the strange world, and the cycle continues. This blurry boundary between reality and fantasy can be observed in other Oshii's works, such as Urusei Yatsura movie Beautiful Dreamer. In doing so, he asks the audience a philosophical question: who are we? Kido Keisat's Patlabor Early Days, released in 1988, is the first of the Patlabor series. This work represents Oshii Mamoru's style in a number of ways. The first characteristic is humor. Although Oshii is mostly known for his seriousness and reality-focused storytelling, he also excels in depicting humor. Like in Urusei Yatsura, he uses different aspects of humor in early days. Sometimes he uses humor in the interaction among characters, and other times he uses humor in events where characters have to deal with unusual situations. By doing so, he creates a sense of lightheartedness that is funny and yet does not interrupt the flow of the story. The second characteristic is reality-focused storytelling. In episode 2, Kanuka, a police officer from the NYPD, talks about the Babylon Project, a reclamation project around Tokyo Bay, and Umi no Ie, a radical environmental organization that seeks to preserve Tokyo Bay through acts of terror. And in episodes 5 and 6, the Patlabor team confronts a military coup. Contrary to what we usually see in documentaries, these events are not mere depictions of reality. They are told humorously and excitingly so that the story never loses a sense of entertainment. By masterfully incorporating realism into a fictitious story, Oshii creates a world that is both exciting and believable, which I think is what makes him a great director. The last characteristic is the use of static shots. Oshii utilizes static shots in many scenes for different effects. For instance, in this scene, Oshii purposefully fixes the camera to express a sense of seriousness. In this scene, a static shot is used to express tension as the protagonist nervously tries to disarm a bomb. In this scene, a static shot is used to express a sense of mystery as the characters try to figure out what is happening around the training camp. Oshii Mamoru has produced many renowned works throughout his career, and his works have inspired countless creators. His unique style can be observed in his early OVA works, showing his versatility as a director. Thanks to his skills and efforts, we can enjoy many great works, for which I am forever grateful. Thank you for watching.